House lights down. God damn! Oh! Okay, another 3 minutes. God damn! And I meant that one. Welcome to Too Big for God. Thanks for coming out. I'm Brother Sam. You know, it's gotten to be where coming to North Texas is like coming home for me. Thank you for that. It is a pure pleasure. You know, we're about to raise hell and put a chunk under it. I want y'all to join in as much as you feel inclined. I hope it's a lot. Let's get this thing going by having everybody stand up. Now turn around and greet somebody and say something nice to them, just like you actually gave a shit. Shake hands, be nice. Do, Lord. Do, Lord. You can sit back down just to stop. This bluegrass band showed up uninvited. I don't know what the fuck is going on. You know, at a legit Sunday morning church service, the proceedings would be interrupted every so often so the congregation could compete for God's attention by hollering their thanks at Him louder than anybody else. That would be your praise.
Thank you, Lord.
I'd say you're welcome, but mark Brother Sam down as in favor of praise 100%. Only there is no shortage of real people to praise without involving imaginary deities. So I want y'all to think of somebody that you're especially thankful to, and you don't have to stand up this time. Somebody who is richly deserving of your praise, living or dead. Hell, you can praise Brother Sam. It'll do us both good. And just go to praising them out loud right now. Loudly. Go. Thank you. Oh, wow. It's Charles Darwin. Yes, Albert Einstein, Emily Dickinson, Tom Waits, Willie Nelson. Well, that really kind of sucked. All right, do it again and don't fuck it up this time. All right, thank you. Oh, it was great. Geez, yeah, thank you, state of Texas, all of my friends here. It's just lovely. Yeah, it was still pretty second rate. But y'all don't have the Holy Ghost, so you got an excuse. I'm sure it has occurred to most everybody here that if the average believer knew the Bible as well as the average atheist, there would be fewer believers and more atheists. You know, it's really hard to get together with very many atheists in one place without having that exact thing demonstrated. as we just did today. Which brings us to Brother Sam's Bible class. Today's lesson is from the Singleton Bible, and I don't have one. Somebody give me a Singleton Bible. You know, the Singleton Bible is known for its brevity, being an abridgment of the King James Version. You clear away the repetition and the Bible-de-gook, and the whole thing fits on one piece of note paper. The Bible, don't read along. I'm going to be talking. I'm going to read the entire damn thing to y'all. Save it for when we have a quiz at the end. You're going to need it then, lest you be embarrassed in front of your pals. The Bible takes place a long time ago and is set in heaven, hell, and the eastern Mediterranean area of earth. Heaven is described as having many mansions, streets of gold, and pearly gates. A place of opulent trashiness. Live a virtuous life and you wind up having to move in with Donald Trump. Very little of the action takes place in heaven. Even less of the action takes place in hell, which seems to have served as the model for the modern subway, it being a place deep underground where it's hot and crowded and noisy and everybody is mean. Like heaven, hell does not exist in any sense other than the imaginary. In fact, the entire Bible is enacted within an area smaller than Texas. It would have been a somewhat different book had it been set in Texas. And it is easy to imagine God being from Texas, the governor of Texas. First key concept, the Bible might as well be set in Texas for all the sense it makes. The Bible is lousy with characters, but only a few of them bear mention. You've probably heard of God. He makes himself and everything else, but is just dumber than a stump and meaner than cat dirt. I'd hate to think what the universe would look like if his creativity hadn't petered out after only 6 days. And lo, on the 7th day, the Lord filled the universe throughout with yak butter. God, the Father, Jesus, the Son, and the Holy Ghost comprise the 3 prongs of the Trinity, but claim to be the same guy, which must drive the census takers crazy. I personally would find it uncomfortable having my own ghost around while I was still alive. But that's the way God prefers it. He is His own Son too. Simon says, so Jesus, if you were your own Father, then you must have... Ew! No, says Jesus. That was the Holy Ghost prong. Simon says, that makes my head spin at the same rate it makes my stomach turn. And Jesus tells Simon to go to hell, and he really has to go there. Second key concept. The Bible is unspeakably perverse. That's why we speak of it. Satan is the 4th prong of the Trinity, you might say. His function is mainly decorative, to provide a contrast flattering to God. Satan is also handy for blaming stuff on. even though God is, of course, responsible for everything. Satan is the grown-up, God is the spoiled child. Satan is God's moral superior to the extent that Satan never once made anybody do anything unpleasant to a penis. On the goddamn contrary. God makes hell for Satan to live in, which suits Satan just fine, just so long as God is not there, which, of course, being omnipresent, He is. God damn. Third key concept. God could learn a lot from Satan, but is insufficiently self-aware. God makes Adam and Eve, but naturally fucks up the job. When their interests extend beyond gardening, He goes into a snit and throws and evicts them from their home. Sometime thereafter, God becomes so distraught with His own boundless ineptitude that He has one of His periodic breakdowns and just drowns everything on earth except one family and their pets. You can see why God has more aliases than Whitey Bulger. Aren't you the one that drowned all those people? No! I'm Yahweh. That was Jehovah. Abraham is the archetype of the terrible father. He also started the circumcision craze, notwithstanding the state of cutlery during the early Bronze Age. Moses claims that God has given him 10 laws or thereabouts, all of which carry the death penalty. Most serve only to aggrandize God. 3 simply formalize what people already accept as necessary to living in groups. No killing, no stealing, no telling lies on somebody else. 1 law is about thought. Do not covet your neighbor's wife's ass. David demonstrates the efficacy of projectiles as weapons by killing a more powerful foe from a safe distance. Founds the National Rock Association. 4th key concept. The Old Testament is the story of humankind's attempts to live with God's mistakes. The first part of the New Testament is mainly about the Son prong of the Trinity. Jesus, who, like other members of His gang, operates under a number of street names. Horn of Salvation, Blessed Redeemer, J.F. Christ. He does attain a level of immortality in spite of his inability to make a go of an honest trade like carpentry. I can only hope that 2,000 years in the future, when people smash their thumb, they say, Sam fucking Singleton! The second part of the New Testament is mainly about the Apostle Paul, who creates Christianity in his own misogynistic, homophobic, anti-Semitic, paranoid image, and ordains himself the world's first evangelist. The 13 books of the New Testament for which Paul claims credit set forth the prejudices and hatreds that define Christianity to this day. Revelation reveals the primitive state of the fantasy fiction genre in the 2nd century. You might as well read L. Ron Hubbard's Dianetics. 5th key concept, the Bible is to say the New Testament is the same old shit. You can pore over in the minutest detail the 2 Testaments and parse their events and analyze their characters till hell won't have it. But to reveal the totality of the Bible's eternal truth, you must look between the lines. But Brother Sam, there is nothing whatsoever between the lines. It is empty space. Blank. Devoid of content? Yes. Now, if everybody has their Singleton Bible, Brother Sam is going to give a few lucky attendees the chance to win or earn their own red A lapel pin, if I have any. All right, I'm going to owe you a red A lapel pin. Now, of course, you can look up the answer, seeing as how you've got it right there in your hands, but, well, goddamn. I would like somebody in their own words. Do we have a mic down here? It doesn't matter. I better get some feedback. What do you bet? Are all of these hot? Yes? You know, if you came here looking for big time, slick, seamless, Broadway level theater, you came to the right place. Because this is the shit right here. All right, who can tell me one of the key concepts, without looking, from the Singleton Bible? Way back there in the back. The Bible might as well have been set where? Texas, USA. All right, this is not for a red A. It's just because y'all are in Texas and you're supposed to know this shit. What year did Texas gain its independence from Mexico? 1836, thank you. All right. Who can tell me what the capitals of Kansas and Florida are? The capital cities of Florida and Kansas. Come on. Yes? Louder?
Topeka and Tallahassee?
Way louder.
Topeka and Tallahassee, I think. I didn't really well in that class.
Topeka and Tallahassee?
Say it again.
Am I getting it wrong?
Say it again, please.
Goddamn Topeka and Tallahassee?
Topeka, Tallahassee, Topeka, Tallahassee, Topeka, Tallahassee.
Topeka and Tallahassee, Topeka and Tallahassee, Topeka and Tallahassee.
That's speaking in tongues. All right. Boy, y'all look smarter than you are. All right. Who can tell me what the second largest religiously defined group in the United States is? Brother Terry? Yes. They're part of the largest group. That would be the Christians, which comprise, what, 80 or more % of the total population. No, I'm not talking about religions. I'm talking about religiously defined group. There's a difference between a group that is defined religiously and a religion. Who wants to tell me what the second largest religiously defined group in the United States is? Way over here.
Islam?
No, it is not Islam. I'll give you a clue. There are twice as many of this group as Muslims and Jews combined in the United States. So it's 5 times larger than the combined numbers of all of Judaism and all of Islam in the United States. What's the second largest religiously defined group in the United States?
Nuns?
Non-believers. It's us. We are the second largest religiously defined group in the United States. Give yourselves a hand in praise. That mic is no longer hot. You know, half the hilarity from being a holy roller comes from speaking in tongues. So anytime anybody here wants to just jump up and start babbling, I think you should just go to it. Brother David Fitzgerald. Now, when somebody else babbles, Holy Rolling Convention holds that everybody else sort of murmurs prayerfully for a few moments. So I think that the next time somebody babbles here, we should all just murmur, walla, 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 walla. Let's try it. Somebody speak in tongues. You can't turn him off once you get him going, you know. Yeah, huh? Makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, doesn't it? So when you feel the urge, just jump up and start reeling off the names of chemical compounds. Texas counties, dog breeds, brands of booze. And the rest of us will just walla walla along. And if somebody else wants to stand up and interpret, well, you ought to do that. Just make up some shit. That's what the holy rollers do. Surprises. Please open your programs, if you have them, to the responsive reading. You're going to try to read in unison. It's harder than it seems. You'll find that it's helpful if you can shut down one lobe of your brain. Brother Sam says, God damn. Well, that really sucked. Do it again. Okay, hold it. Oh, a 1 and a 2 and a... Ooh, that was pretty good. Glad you asked. We're enacting a satire, a burlesque, a lampoon, a send-up, a parody. I think we're looking at different things here. That was actually a test to see if you would just read anything that we put in front of you. Turns out you will. Yes. There is nothing mere about mockery in the face of immense political and cultural might. In the face of such as that, one grabs whatever equalizer falls to hand. And no conceit is so grandiose that it cannot be reduced to a manageable size by mockery. Praise mockery. Mockery is the blunt instrument with which we render piety insensible. Satire is the scalpel with which we perform its vivisection. Goddamn right, goddamn. Give yourselves a big hand. Gospel in my soul. You know, on this tour, we have a keyboard player, Brother Chris Saunders, who's been on the road with us, and he was scheduled to be along for all the dates on this tour, and he made a couple of them, got sick, had to go back to Nashville. Oh, there's Brother Chris right now. Okay, turns out Brother Chris sucks. Imagine my disappointment. I'm glad he's sick. Oh, not really. That wasn't Brother Chris. That was Brother Billy, and Brother Billy's dead. Now we come to the testimony service. Among holy rollers, the testimony service is an excuse to stand up and talk about something nice that God has done for you recently. Some total bullshit, which everybody pretends to believe. So, who wants to share something that really did happen to him? Something nice. Maybe the sun came up. Stand up. Matt Dillahunty. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Brother Matt?
I was cursed 30 minutes before the debate began with explosive diarrhea.
But you debated them very well.
And yet something powerful saw me all the way through to the end.
All the way from Austin, Texas. Brother JT.
30 minutes before our debate, my partner was stricken with explosive diarrhea, which allowed me the chance to sing to a very little girl.
Anybody knows Brother JT knows that he's always laying for an excuse to sing. So.
That's not true.
Who else? Come on. Oh, yeah, you look like a bunch of ingrates. Jesus Christ. Okay. All right, Brother Zach, I'm putting you on the spot.
3 months ago, I was blessed with a brand new baby boy.
Beat that with a stick. He looks just like his Uncle Sam, doesn't he?
Yeah, and we gave birth at a Southern Baptist hospital, but we had an atheist nurse.
Huh? So I guess it would be better to have to give birth at an atheist hospital and have a Southern Baptist nurse, but. You know, another thing that holy rollers do is prophesy. Sometimes they speak in tongues just for the hell of it. Hundala Shundai. Sometimes they speak in tongues by way of the Holy Ghost imparting a message, which somebody else is supposed to interpret. We just covered that. And then sometimes they prophesy. So if anybody can think of something that is absolutely certain to happen, you should feel free to stand up at any time and impart that unto us. And I promise that we will provide all the wallas that you could possibly ever want. Walla, 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 walla. Just a closer walk with thee. Yeah.
Atheists will make up half the population.
Yes. Is it? Walla, 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 walla. You can cut that now. Jeez, it's starting to get old. God damn. The message, I think it's time to have the message. I'm going to preach a little sermon at you. The title of this message I'm about to impart is An Atheist Genesis. I offer it as a reply to those who ask, Brother Sam, how do you get to be an atheist evangelist? And as a guide for those considering taking up the mantle themselves, Brother JT. Like everybody, I started out an atheist. But my folks tricked me into thinking there was a God. They had been holy rollers forever. They both backslid as soon as I was born. Waited till I was 4 years old to get right with the Lord, which I've always suspected was timed just to fuck up what ought to have been the promised years of my childhood. And as my folks were reforming themselves into holy rollers, I was learning to read, which was my salvation. The means by which, at the age of 14, I was finally able to recognize God for what He was, which was, of course, what He wasn't. When I was 8 years old, my folks turned me into a child evangelist. I would accept some blame for that, seeing as how the idea did come from me. But I was not of sufficient age to be held accountable. I personally blame my folks. You may think I sound bitter. That's where you'd be right. Somebody was supposed to exercise some adult judgment. What the fuck did I know? I was a child. God damn. Anyway, I do not recall that I ever formulated a plan per se for becoming an evangelist, but I did set the machinery into motion. I took a notion to make like I was some kind of Pentecostal prodigy, which would require that I receive the baptism of the Holy Ghost with the evidence of speaking in tongues. But first I must be saved. Salvation had not been necessary so long as in the Lord's eyes I was still a blameless child, so long as I had not reached the age of accountability. I decided to move my age of accountability to right now. So I repented of such mortal sins as for which an 8-year-old might judge himself guilty, and asked Jesus to save me. And I believed that Jesus had come into my heart and totally renovated it to suit the Holy Ghost. Beginning with the next meeting, I got down and tarried. Singleton's Holy Roller Handbook and Field Guide defines tarrying for the Holy Ghost as pretending to pray while working up the nerve to speak in tongues out loud in front of everybody. It can take months, even years, being a matter of locating and releasing one's latent lunatic. You are not a certifiable Pentecostal till you loose the lunatic. Now, being a trusting child, I actually expected that in consideration of all this intensive tarrying I was putting in, the Holy Ghost would take hold of my vocal apparatus and begin transmitting straight from the mouth of young Brother Sam. But long about the 10th session, I realized that if any tongues were ever going to get spoken, I would have to give the Holy Ghost a boost. Glossolalia, that's the technical term for tongue speaking. It's not like French or Russian. There's no vocabulary to memorize. There are no rules of grammar to go by. Every holy roller has a personal Babbleistic lingo. My mother was a great one for jumping up in the middle of the service and delivering a message in tongues. No matter what the Holy Ghost was trying to express, it always came out, Hundala Shundai, Hundala Shundai, Hundala Shundai. With a few variations. Now, before you go to thinking I hated my mother, I didn't. She just talked funny. My father, too. He seldom spoke in tongues, but when he did, he made like he was trying to express some very difficult concept in some obscure pidgin dialect he heard back in the South Pacific when he was in the war. Komodo, Topo, Lingo, Chico, Copo, Lingo, Como, Pulo, Noogie, Noogie. When the Holy Ghost spoke through Aunt Winnie, it sounded like she was trying to lay an egg. She was prone to dancing in the Spirit too, flapping her arms, taking these high chicken steps. I didn't see any way but to trust the Holy Ghost to not make me dance around like a chicken. Feeling stupid was not the worst of it. I've been hearing about this unforgivable sin deal my whole life. Which, ironically, I never had to worry about till I got saved. I didn't even know what it was. Only that you went to hell if you did it. Guaranteed. Had to be something pretty rank. Whatever was worse than murder, I guessed. So I finally got up the nerve to ask my father about it. He got very serious. Said, well, that's nothing to fool with. Matthew 12:31, blasphemy against the Holy Ghost shall not be forgiven unto men. I did not know what blasphemy was. And I couldn't figure what anybody could do that could bother a ghost. Plus, this ghost was God, or part of God. The dead part. I looked it up and found that blasphemy was nothing more than making fun. I had no idea that the Holy Ghost was so touchy. Now I wondered if I was committing the unforgivable sin by faking the solemnest manifestation of the Holy Ghost, namely speaking in tongues. Still, I gritted my teeth and worked up a few phrases I could string together at random. You know, speaking in tongues convincingly is harder than pissing in public. If you are the least bit bashful, you're better off as a Presbyterian. Actually, you're better off as an atheist. Goddamn. So when the altar call came around the next time, I just set to babbling like I went forward and set to tarrying with all my might. The usual knot of people gathered around me, all of them beseeching the Lord on my behalf. Well, I just set to babbling like I was born to it. Chocolate mama yoko. Chocolate dundle la furka borga lay hum show lay sabu bari baba iska yi babu and so forth. Anybody else want to try it? Walla 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 walla. Well, I wrapped it up and everybody, including my folks, appeared satisfied, ecstatic even, that I'd got the Holy Ghost. Their faces all just lit up when I looked at them. I expected somebody to call me out for blasphemy, but nobody did. So maybe I was not committing the unforgivable sin. Maybe I was not damned. Maybe I was. Blasphemy. See, these days you don't have to be a holy roller to be concerned with blasphemy. You don't even have to believe in a God. It's not God's wrath you need to concern yourself with in any case. Or the Holy Ghost and His fragile feelings. Fuck the Holy Ghost. All you really need to worry about are believers with bad intent and weapons. Okay, back to me getting the Holy Ghost or pretending to get the Holy Ghost. My folks bought right into it. Maybe I was just seeing how far they'd let me take it, but I heard myself announcing that I had been called to preach, effective immediately. My mother said, "The Holy Ghost does not go by how old you are." My father agreed. He said, "That's right. The Holy Ghost goes by when He's ready to use you. John the Baptist got the Holy Ghost when he was still in his mother's womb. Turned out the Lord had spoken to them too. That's what they told me. Omitting that the Lord further indicated that young Brother Sam would be leading the family into the land of milk and honey, which as we inhabited the land of cornbread and beans, was much to be desired. Both of my parents and the Holy Ghost were full of shit. At that time, we were attending the Spirit-filled Tabernacle of Everlasting, or the Spirit-filled Tabernacle of Victorious Deliverance Indestructible. Church, for short. Which was pastored by Coy Lee Peck Jr. and held in his trailer house. My father told Brother Coy Lee about me getting a baptism, being called to preach, and Brother Coy Lee agreed to have little Brother Sam preach the Wednesday night prayer meeting. Well, I worked up a sermon along the lines of what I'd heard a million times. Of course, I don't remember much of it, but I do sort of remember talking to the people like they were children too. My text was from Luke 19, where Zacchaeus shinnied up a sycamore tree to see Jesus go by, which had two things going for it. Zacchaeus was a little fella, and I knew about sycamore trees. Now, anybody who has ever climbed a sycamore tree knows that the main reason for doing so is to pelt those below with sycamore balls. But Zacchaeus did not pelt Jesus with sycamore balls. Jesus thought that was mighty big of Zacchaeus. Singled him out as an example. My point was that Jesus did not go by how small you were, or how young, how rich, or how educated. Well, the sermon went over big. Everybody got a major blessing out of it. So word got around, and it didn't take long till little Brother Sam got to be something of an attraction at pissant little Pentecostal churches within a 200-mile radius of Noxapater, Mississippi. Anybody here from Noxapater? 60 miles north of Chunky, Mississippi. Oh, from Chunky, Brother Terry. Being away for days or sleeping in the back seat, my education was sporadic, which suited my folks. I did acquire a strong foundation in the practical geography of the South Central USA. And some other useful knowledge. For one thing, I learned how to siphon gas out of a parked car when we were too broke to get to church. And all about shopping for produce, roasting ears and such, out of a farmer's field when he wasn't around. One thing that had not occurred to me before going into the ministry is that preachers go to church for a living. And I hated church, no matter who was preaching, me or anybody else. So I wound up putting myself in for even more church than I was already getting. As Brother Sam says, unintended consequences are a motherfucker. Did somebody say goddamn? At least sitting up on the platform is usually better than being down among the congregation. And having folks treat me with respect and even awe, well, I cannot say that did not go to my head. I came into an insupportably grand view of my own mentality, not realizing that my prominence, as the saying goes, was due to the flatness of the ground around me. I've been asked what it was like, my father and me both being preachers at the same time. Initially, he was 100% for me going into the ministry. But I could tell it got to eating at him. On one hand, it seemed like he resented me trespassing on his territory. On the other, he was always on me for not giving evangelism my all, which I wasn't. Maybe if my heart had been in it, we could have gone nationwide. I sure wanted a better life for my family and myself. Between him and me, the love offerings were not enough to live off of. On a good night, maybe 30 or 40 people would show up. Every one of them just as impoverished as we were. It was meager pickings, I can tell you. We had different styles of preaching, my father and me. He was a great one for flamboyant flourishes, big words. He knew what he was doing. He came off as though by assuming that the congregation knew the meanings of the words he used, he was complimenting them on their smarts. Mostly folks ate that shit up. If my father had talked to the people like they were children, they would have hated him. Sure, the substance of what he put forth was what a very young child might believe. Invisible friends, ghosts and demons and such. But his whole thing was to sort of lift the congregation up. Outside, the world may regard them as ignorant hicks, but there in church while he was preaching, they comprised an assembly of great minds. But I did not model my preaching on my father's. I preferred to keep it simple. Folks used to say that the average daily newspaper was written so as to be understandable by readers with a 6th grade education. I aimed somewhat lower. I was trolling way down in the reading optional zone. Preaching was my family's trade, or would have been if any of us could have made a living at it. As it was a calling, which is like a trade, only you do not need to know anything or be able to do anything. You don't need skill. You just need almighty gall. Go to any church and see for yourself. Goddamn. But as for my father and me, neither one of us was ever going to play in the big leagues. He couldn't and I wouldn't. Almost 4 years, that's how long I was out on the Sawdust Trail. Our base of operations changed 6 times. I changed too. Sometime not long after my 12th birthday, I refused to preach anymore. I told my folks that God had withdrawn the call. They tried to argue, but I knew I had them. I said God had something else in mind for me, which He would divulge when the time was right. I'd let them know as soon as the word came down. Thus began my 2-year walk to the door. I knew that whatever truth was, my people were strangers to it. I knew that their religion was false and was wrong in both senses of the word. It was false and it was immoral. So in my retirement, I set about investigating other religions. I figured Judaism was more authentic than Christianity, but Judaism, and Islam too, forbade the very foodstuffs I'd never got enough of. Bacon now versus paradise at some point in the future is what I call a classic bird in the hand deal. Give me the pork, thank you. At least I stopped short of Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnessism. I was curious, not crazy. Oh. Bidding fare thee well to the Abrahamic traditions, I wanted to see if some entirely different traditions might work out better. The local Buddhist met in the back room of a furniture store, like Holy Rollers might. And their congregation was small too, maybe 20. Nice folks. But I found it absurd to think that all suffering comes from desire. Buddha started out a rich prince. He was poor on purpose. Not the example I was looking for. And just so you know, desire fuels civilization. I know it fuels Brother Sam. Hinduism advocates the caste system. No fair. Besides, reincarnation is just as preposterous as heaven and hell. Even as I was turning over every flat rock for a religion that made sense, I was wising up. So with each one, it got to be a hard sell. I read the Bible from start to finish when I was 14, and I was an atheist by the time I got done. I did not think it best to let my folks in on the good news just yet. We were living in Houston, not the one in Texas County, Missouri, or even the one in Mississippi, the one in Texas. I was in 9th grade. Morris Cerullo, big-time evangelist, put on a revival at the music hall. They made me go. Brother Cerullo told about growing up in a Jewish orphanage and how when he was 14, he had a personal visitation from Jesus. You see, Jesus recognized little Morris's criminal potential. Jesus is like a talent scout for the mob. He told Morris that, well, he could be a millionaire evangelist, but he'd have to convert. Jesus explained that one Jew was about all Holy Roll could abide, and he had dibs. The first thing the Apostle Paul did when he became an evangelist was to stop calling himself a Jew and start calling himself a Christian. So that was how it was done. Affiliation aside, being an evangelist naturally entails being a show-off. Morris Cerullo laid over them all. When he wrapped up his sermon about himself, he commanded everybody between the ages of 12 and 20 to come up on the stage. I had to go up there with the others. There were hundreds of us. The supporting pastors who had been sitting on stage formed us into rows. Brother Cerullo says, "The power of God will lay these young people out like a platter of frozen fish sticks." It was common for people at revivals to be slain in the Spirit. The handbook defines that as pretending to pass out. Usually it'd be limited to a few people up front where there happened to be room for them to sprawl. The Holy Ghost was considerate like that. Brother Cerullo was going to demonstrate slaying in the Spirit on an industrial scale. I'm back in about row 8. Brother Cerullo reaches out and taps his boy on the forehead, and God damn if he doesn't fall back like he's been shot, a couple of the pastors ease him to the floor. Then Brother Cerullo does the same thing to the next one in line, and the next one. And he's coming my way fast. Now I'm debating whether I'm going to pretend to be slain in the Spirit or face the fallout. I do not want Brother Cerullo or the thousands of the people in the hall to mistake me for a chump. It taking one to know one, and them being holy rollers. But there I am, and Brother Cerullo is laying out the teenagers one by one. And then he's standing right in front of me. Up close, he's this sweaty little pink-faced guy with a dye job. He says something about the power of the Holy Ghost, and floats that hand out there and raps me just a lick on the forehead. I'm still computing the consequences and not playing along. Will he rear back and give her another poke? Will he have 2 or 3 pastors take me aside and offer to kick my hippie ass if I don't get with the goddamn program? No, I know exactly what he'll do. He'll ask the entire congregation to join him in praying me through on the spot. So I settle for giving him a sharp look to convey how I know this is all horse shit. Then rock back on my heels like a fucking idiot. So now I'm lying there on the stage of the music hall. And around me, hundreds of youngsters are all pretending to be unconscious. The crowd is shouting and speaking in tongues. Sounds like all hell. Looks like the final dress rehearsal for Jonestown, which, as far as I can say, Morris Cerullo had nothing to do with. So I'm wondering how long I'm going to have to lie there. There's no way I'm going to be the first one up or the last one. So after a goddamned eternity, maybe 5 minutes in clock time, movement overtook the deck around me, and the supine youngsters began to rise like reanimated corpses at the second coming. It was sufficient time for a genesis to occur. Out of the dust of being lied to, being misled, being made a fool of, being shown off, being scared, miserable, and hopeless, was created Sam Singleton, Atheist Evangelist. I arose and left that stage transformed, prepared to face life on terms of my own choosing. And I knew that my future was fixing to take a sharp turn toward the shitty. I never felt better. And nobody could say I didn't try every which way to get God to work out. That motherfucker would just flat not exist. So I actually made up a list of the sects and cults I looked into. Any resemblance to a roll of toilet paper is purely coincidental. Baptist, Methodist, Foursquare, Nazarene, Lutheran, Huguenot, Animist, Tridentine, Sadducee, Orthodox, Philistine, Oriental, Essene, Augustine, Pharisee, Transcendental. Baptism, Calvinism, Hinduism, Santeria, Basilidian, Tontican, Simonite, Episcopalian. Levite, Hutterite, Ophrite, Ananda, Mennonite, Canaanite, Russellite, Siddha, Heart of Latter-day, Sabbath-day, Bible Way, Rosicrucian, Islam, Gideon, Anglican, Hare Krishna. Codism, legalism, Satanism, Coptic, Jainism, Judaism, cynicism, Gnostic. Puritan, pagan, hedonist, chiropractic, Christian Scientist, Pentecostal, charismatic, Shaker, Quaker, Manichaean, Anabaptist, Wiccan, Davidian, Pythian, homeopathic. Druid, Hoodoo, Voodoo, Apostolic, Adventist, Demonic, Histrionic, Catatonic. Avite, Elkosite, Borberite, Dunkard, Kabbalah, Ebonite, Anonymous, Drunkard. Platonism, Shinto, Aztec, Noggin Ball. Hubbardite, Church of God, Church of Satan, Holy Roller. Unitary, Presbytery, Rastafari, Pastafari. Church of Christ, Church of Jesus, Church of doing what you pleases. It was a goddamn circuitous path, but I'm glad it brought me here so I could be with y'all tonight. I'm going to ask the ushers, do we have ushers? I'm going to ask the ushers to please take their places. Get your little buckets. And now before you go to thinking Brother Sam for the kind of evangelist who will shake folks down for an offering even though they're paid to get in, let me assure you, I am. This is not your run-of-the-mill collection we're going to try and perpetrate. This is just so everybody can experience an offering, but nobody has to feel put out or put upon. So when the baskets come around, please drop in anything that Brother Sam might find interesting or useful. Whatever's handy and not too big, likely to spill or inflict a venomous bite. We're not going to take up a trash collection so you can keep your used Kleenexes and condoms. But offerings such as poker chips, foreign coins, amusing odds and ends are received with gratitude and enthusiasm. So thank you in advance. Brother Dave. Walla. It's like coitus interruptus. Or the Pentecostal equivalent thereof, you know. That's as close as they get. I feel like I ought to send y'all along with a few words of encouragement. As in this little piece of theater we just enacted. Everybody has a role to play in ensuring that atheists, scientists and teachers and farmers and truck drivers, computer programmers and evangelists can fully participate in and thus contribute to civic life. It doesn't matter how you describe yourself as an atheist, a bright, or a secular humanist, or a contra-superstitionalist. Much less how somebody else describes you. Confrontationalist, accommodationist, milquetoast, firebrand. There's a role for you. And you are the only one who can fill it. Whether it's center stage, or in the wings, or backstage, there's something for you to do. But this movement is not theater. There is no place for you to just sit and watch. So join the company. Thank you and God night. God night. Good night. Give it up for Brother Kevin Butler.